it's still not as bad as the Chicago Bulls. I'm Andrew Walker with the Sportsnet Central Update. More on the Raptors in a minute. But first, bad news in Chicago. Former MVP point guard Derrick Rose has suffered yet another setback. He'll have another surgery on his right knee for the second straight season. A timetable for his return is still unclear. He may be back in time for the postseason. The Toronto Raptors, meanwhile, they had another lead in Dallas last night, but ran out of gas in the fourth quarter, en route to a third straight loss, 99-92 to the Mavs. Raps led it by 3. Heading into the fourth, but, says head coach Dwayne Casey, too many turnovers.
Well, our fatigue turnovers got us. I mean, the turnovers were crucial, were brutal. They led to baskets on the other end. Some of them were forced, some of them were unforced turnovers. And I thought that was the difference in the second half.
18 points for DeMar DeRozan. The road trip is now over. Raps return home to face Golden State this Friday. Busy night around the NHL. If you can believe it, more bad news for Chicago sports teams. Patrick Kane, he goes awkwardly into the boards in a 3-2 shootout win over Florida, and he left with what's reported to be perhaps a broken collarbone. He's out indefinitely. Either way, Kane is tied for the NHL lead with 64 points. Elsewhere, the red-hot Montreal Canadiens win on the road again. And his pass back, out of the box, Portable, breakaway, and he scores! Russell Portable! 5-2 victory over St. Louis, 3 points for Alex Galchenyuk. Montreal, they make a trade as well yesterday. Yuri Sekac goes to Anaheim in exchange for bruising winger Devontae Smith-Pelly. Big new deal for Nick Leddy and the Islanders. The defenseman does not get to free agency. 7-year deal worth $38.5 million. The Leafs, they're back in action tomorrow as they host Philly. Don't forget, Scotiabank Wednesday Night Hockey on Sportsnet. It's the Flames visiting New Jersey. The Caps and Penguins will play on Sportsnet 1. You're listening to the home of Leafs Nation, Sportsnet 590 The Fan.
The Jeff Blair Show. Swing Now Brady and Walker. Only on Sportsnet 590 The Fan.
Thrown around. Patrick Kane. Oh, man. Oh, what a play from behind. Terrible move by Petrovic. An awkward ball to the board by the NHL's leading point producer. Fortunately starting to scrape himself up off the ice.
6:23, Brady and Walker on your Wednesday. Yeah, it is bad news. More bad news for Chicago. What a night. Like, let's say the Raptors are the Raptors, and the Leafs are like a beast. Let's say the Leafs are a beast, and they lose Phil Kessel and Kyle Lowry on the same day. Good heavens, can you imagine?
Wait, are all these Tank Nation losers cheering Kessel's injury? They're like,
yay, more losses! No, I'm saying if these
29
losers. Serious. I'm saying if that happened, at least we're good. Like it would be devastating. What a morning in Chicago.
Yeah, so, but you wouldn't go, oh, the long-suffering sports fans of Chicago with their within the last 10 years their World Series and their 2 Stanley Cups.
But come on, arguably. I mean, how many superstars do they have in Chicago sports? 5, 6? You just lost 2 of them in one night.
I agree, 100%. Now, think about, do you feel it's strange with Kane? Like, do his 2 cups and all his he's had great playoffs.
Big goals. He won
big goals.
Overtime cup winner.
Could you go to the coffee bar or photocopier today and win a bet with, let's say, take a guy who's a 3 out of 10 for sports knowledge, okay? Could you go to a colleague at your workplace and say, guess what? How many times has Patrick Kane scored over 30 goals in the league? He never has. Isn't that weird? He's never scored more than 30. He scored 30 one year, but he's never scored more than 30. And you can count on the 70 points every year, it feels like. Think about that.
Right. Well, I mean,
and he's the leading scorer in the NHL.
Yeah. He gets
a great player.
He gets more assists than he gets goals.
He gets more exactly, but
right.
Again, reputation-wise, you wouldn't think that.
Rick Nash has had 50.
I know.
Before. He's had 70 points once in his career.
So
Rick Nash is like a 35-25 guy.
I'm just saying. I think you can win some money today off Fred from sales or Ron, your boss. I think you can do that.
Okay. Well, first off, the hit. People in Chicago are going to be cursing Alex Petrovic today. It was totally. I thought it was totally nuts. Like the puck's there. That's one. Yeah, they're 9 feet away from the board. It's not like he drills them from behind right into the dasher. Injuries happen. You got to remember that.
We talked even yesterday about Chicago because they got whacked by Boston on Sunday, and we made note of just how convincing a kick it was. And they rallied yesterday to beat the Panthers. Okay, fine, in a shootout. I think it was going to be a long haul for Chicago anyway. I mean, they were a game away last year from going to the Stanley Cup final, and they beat just as much the favorites against the Rangers in the final that the Kings were, right? You would expect. Everybody would have picked Chicago to win the series.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
So, this year, maybe we just agree and say, hey, it's the same road, it's the same. Nashville's the new wrinkle in the West now. It was all St. Louis and Chicago ran away along with Colorado with that division before.
California doesn't appear as tough, but they're all.
But you got to get to the Western Conference Final to beat the California teams. I think we look at Nashville with a healthy Rene and what they're doing and the ads they've made and the new direction, and say they're more of a threat than Colorado was going to the playoffs last year. Bottom line was, Chicago's got two things they can do here, Andrew. One, with Stan Bowman and Joel Quenneville, they can say, we're still the Blackhawks. We're not gonna all of a sudden go into losing 9 of 11 because we don't have one player. That's the theory they can have, and we won't slip past where we are. Or they can say, we were going for it anyway. We feel there's a window there with certain players. We got some older guys. We got, Marion Host is 35.
Yeah, Marion Host is not getting better.
Patrick Sharp's 32. He's been injured a lot this year.
Duncan Keith's not getting better.
Duncan Keith's hit 30. Brent Seabrook's going to hit 30. So we were going to add anyway. Now we have to add over the next 2 months going into the playoffs.
They don't have a lot of money, though, and you got to remember that
you're going to put Kane on LTIR, so for the time being, you can rent.
Yes,
but a guy you don't have to pay next year.
Patrick Kane is, yes. And so, yes, it takes Joffrey Loop a lot of the equation, as much as someone like to put 2 and 2 together and say, hey, he'd be great there. Yes, but don't forget, next year as well. I mean,
like, this might be a one-off for a guy like Brad Richards. Brad Richards probably isn't coming back to the Blackhawks and maybe doesn't want to play on a 1-year deal for $2 million the rest of his career, whether it's another 3 years or whether it's another 5 years. He doesn't want to do that.
Chicago is going to be paying $8 million extra. One of the reasons they couldn't keep a guy like Nick Leddy, they're going to be paying $8 million extra for Kane and Taves next year. Their cap hit's going to be 10.5. Right? And you could say, boy, they're in trouble. I mean, who wouldn't want those two? Those two and everybody else,
yes,
they'd be just fine. But there are going to be some major cap concerns. Like, you're going to see a Patrick Sharp get traded. I guarantee you. You're going to see a Brent Seabrook get dealt. They have to.
All of this stems back to how they made David Bolland available to the Leafs.
Sure, Glad and
Buffalo. The money that Bolland could have potentially got. He probably gets more than Brian Bickle got. Brian Bickle, the former Windsor Spitfire Ottawa 67, has one hot playoff, but they saw fit keep him. And I'm not saying that's a bad move in retrospect. Yeah, I don't think there's but Daniel Winnick is an interesting fit now. He is an absolute,
absolutely.
To add potentially to a third line in Chicago, but it means Chicago's this one team that can lose a star player. And I think we know they've got guys like Hossa, to some extent like Bickle, that can move up a slot. Marion Hossa can play on the first line.
Sure,
anywhere in this league, even for Steve,
top 6 guy in so many games. So speaking of trades, a couple yesterday, but the one of note, it's player for player. It is a hockey deal, but the Anaheim Ducks trade Devontae Smith-Pelly, the former St. Mike's Major, to the Montreal Canadiens for rookie winger, a little older rookie, but you're Seacatch. Seacatch is going to go to Anaheim, and if you play with Getza, you're going to get a bunch of points, and that'll look great. But make no mistake, the Montreal Canadiens are piecing together this playoff team right now, and I think they have as good a chance